In our previous lesson, we learnt about the various events that together made up the American Civil War. The American Civil War broke out in 1861 following the Battle of Fort Sumter. So, the Battle of Fort Sumter was the one that opened the American Civil War. The American Civil War was fought between the Union forces or the Federal forces on the one hand and the Confederate forces on the other hand. These two groups of states, that is the northern states and the Union forces together, and the Confederate states or the Confederate forces were embroiled in many hard-fought battles. It wasn't very easy for either side to win those battles. We also learnt about the Battle of Gettysburg, which was the deadliest battle fought during the American Civil War. And with the Federal forces capturing Richmond in the state of Virginia in the year 1865, the American Civil War came to an end. We learnt how this all happened under the leadership of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was the then President of the United States of America, who tried his best to abolish slavery altogether. And after the American Civil War came to an end, Abraham Lincoln was also assassinated in 1865. And in this lesson, we will learn about the impact that the American Civil War has left behind. We will also talk about how important this American Civil War has been from a very global perspective. Now, as a quick recap, we should remember that the American Civil War was fought between the Federal forces and the Confederate forces. And the American Civil War came to an end with the victory of the Federal forces. That is to say, the Union forces emerged victorious out of the American Civil War and the Confederate forces had to surrender. While this war costed a lot of lives on both the sides and costed a lot of resources on both the sides as well, this could be considered a quintessential fight between good and bad, between good and evil. While on the one hand, the Union forces were fighting for the abolition of slavery, the Confederate forces wanted to preserve this institution of slavery. That is to say, they wanted to continue this ill practice of slavery. With the defeat of the Confederate forces came the end of the practice of slavery. That is to say, this war meant an absolute end to slavery. So this is what we have learnt when we talked about the American Civil War and the various events that made up this Civil War. Now let us find out what happened after the Union forces emerged victorious by defeating the Confederate forces. The defeat of the Confederate forces and the simultaneous victory of the Union forces meant a lot of things for the United States of America, because this meant unity for the nation. This meant that the nation was not being divided into two halves. The United States of America will again be a united nation. The Confederate States of America never formed a nation in its own right, though they proclaimed to be so, because the United States of America never granted the CSA a constitutional right, a legal status, which is why the secession of the southern states to form the CSA was considered illegal and unconstitutional. Now with this, there was the need for a stronger central government, because it was only on account of the ignorance of the central government or the US federal government that the southern states could secede from the Union. Now, this country realized that there should be one stable and very strong central government which will keep intact the unity of the nation. And so, this importance of a strong central government now spread worldwide, because the various countries in different parts of the world were seeing what was happening during the American Civil War. And after the Confederate forces were defeated, these countries for their own good understood that they should have a strong central government that will hold together an entire nation, a strong central government that will keep the nation from falling apart. So this was the importance of the American Civil War on the global front. This is how the American Civil War had impacted global politics. That is to say, this is how the American Civil War and its outcome had left a long-lasting impression on various countries of the world. We have learned that after America gained independence and established its own constitution, it became a federation, or it had a federal system of governance. Now, what does a federal system of government mean? Now, you should remember that in a federal system of government, power is divided equally among the states on the one hand and the central or federal government on the other hand. Now, during the American Civil War, that is before the war broke out and right immediately after the war broke out, 7 plus 4, 11 southern states had seceded from the Union, and this caused a disruption in the political system. That is, the federal system of government was disrupted. Now, after the American Civil War came to an end, a strong central government was required to keep all these states together. So now, the several states that together comprised the nation of the United States of America had control over their own affairs. This we have already learnt, that in a federal system of government, the states get to enjoy control over their own affairs or over internal affairs. But at the same time, we are not to assume that this autonomy or this independence over one's internal affairs gave the states the liberty to secede from the Union or to do anything and everything they wanted. They could not do that. And most importantly, they could not separate themselves from the Union. They were to be a part of the federal government itself, and they were supposed to enjoy their autonomy only over their own affairs or only over internal affairs. And to ensure that all the states remained together under the Union, a strong central government was required. Now, this establishes the point why a strong central government of the United States of America was required to keep all the states together. And in this way, the federal system of government or the federation could also be kept under balance. So, in this way, after the American Civil War broke out and after it came to an end, the federal form of government enjoyed a victory. The country did not fall into pieces because there was now a strong central government that would hold the states together, a strong central government that would keep the nation from falling apart. Previously, the people who lived in America enjoyed only a state citizenship. Now, what is a state citizenship? This we will discuss in a while. But after the American Civil War happened, the people of America realized that they should now have a kind of a national identity. They should have a national belonging, that is a sense of belonging to the nation. Now, when the American Civil War happened, so many southern states had seceded from the Union. This is because they did not feel anything for the Union itself. They had allegiance only to the states they belonged to, or only to the states they resided in. And these people did not feel one with the nation, which is why they were rebelling and waging a war against the nation itself. We have learned how the American Civil War had split the country into two groups. After this American Civil War came to an end, the people of this country realized that they should have a kind of a national identity. To develop a national identity, it was required for them to feel a sense of national belonging. That is, a sense of belonging to one's nation, to feel one with the nation. This feeling wasn't existent previously because previously it was only a state citizenship that the people of the United States of America enjoyed. So, what is a state citizenship? Suppose you live in the state of Texas. So previously, that is before the American Civil War, you would have only been a citizen of Texas, and the citizenship of Texas or the state citizenship would invariably make you a US citizen. So there was only the state citizenship that the people of America enjoyed. Now we have learned that so many people decided to wage war against the nation because they did not feel one with the nation, and so now was required what we came to know as the dual citizenship. Now what is dual citizenship? In dual citizenship, people of a country get to enjoy citizenship at two levels, that is at the level of the state and then at the level of the nation itself. So people were now citizens of the state of their residence, that is the state they belonged to, and simultaneously they were also the citizens of the United States of America. So this explains the concept of dual citizenship. Now considering you still live in the state of Texas, after this idea of dual citizenship was implemented, you would become a citizen of both the state of Texas and the United States of America. So you would hold dual citizenship in the country, and in this way you would feel one with the nation, or you would feel a sense of belonging to the nation. You will not feel alienated from the concept of the nation itself. Now why did the people of America come up with this idea of a dual citizenship? This is because the people thought that by introducing dual citizenship, separatist tendencies could be suppressed. Now what role did separatist tendencies play in the outbreak of the American Civil War? Previously, the people living in the southern states shared separatist sentiments, which is why they waged war against the nation. But now, if they belong to the nation, they would no longer feel these separatist tendencies, or they would no longer harbor separatist sentiments, which is why this idea of dual citizenship was implemented. Now, the two colors in this illustration symbolize the two levels of citizenship. That is, people of the United States of America were now the citizens of both the states they belonged to and the nation of the United States of America. This was a very important political decision that was implemented after the end of the American Civil War. Now let us find out how significant the victory of the federal forces was. The victory of the federal forces meant that Confederate forces were put to end. That is to say, these secessionist states or these separatist tendencies were now put to rest. So, the country of the United States of America did not lose its unity. It was once again together after the end of the American Civil War. Now, this is a very important outcome of the American Civil War, but we should not restrict ourselves to understanding only this outcome of the American Civil War, because the most important outcome of the American Civil War was the abolition of slavery. Now you must be remembering that the Confederate forces or the Confederate states were in favor of slavery, because the southern states thrived on the usage of free slave labor. But the federal forces won this civil war, and with this they put an end to this ill practice of slavery. And with this, slavery was completely abolished from the United States of America. So it was the 13th amendment of the Constitution that finally put an end to this horrible practice, this horrible institution of slavery. And this 13th amendment was enacted in the year 1865. So 1865 has been a very important year in the history of the United States of America, because it finally meant an end to slavery. Along with that, the US government now did anything and everything it could to put an end to slavery. The former slaves who were either punished or threatened or still put in chains were now released. That is to say, all the slaves were now free. They had achieved their freedom and independence from this practice of slavery. A subsequent amendment to the Constitution also necessitated the concept of birthright citizenship. Now, what does birthright citizenship mean? Birthright citizenship meant that any person who takes birth in America, irrespective of their race, color, gender, religion, social class, will now become the citizens of America. So, on occasion of the 13th Amendment of the Constitution, so many slaves got their freedom, their independence from this practice of slavery, and later on they also got citizenship. And it is through the birthright citizenship that these slaves now got citizenship of the United States of America. But only putting an end to the concept of slavery or the practice of slavery theoretically did not mean that slavery ceased to exist. But it was the Emancipation Proclamation declared by Abraham Lincoln that had paved the way to the abolition of slavery, and the people of America were walking on the way that he had paved. It was still a long journey to achieving absolute freedom from slavery. But the abolition of slavery had theoretically happened with the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution in the year 1865. Now let me quickly ask you a question before proceeding with this lesson. When was slavery abolished everywhere in the United States of America? Did it happen in 1850, 1865, 1870 or 1900? Yes, it was through the 13th Amendment of the Constitution in the year 1865 that this practice of slavery was abolished throughout the country of the United States of America. So, United States of America now became a truly independent and democratic nation. But to ensure democracy, all the citizens should be standing on an equal ground. That is to say, discrimination among citizens on the basis of their race, their color, their gender, their religion should not happen, and in this way democracy can be truly achieved. So, same rights ensuring life, liberty and property was thus finally upholded by the United States of America. This was the promise of equality for all the citizens. So now all the citizens, irrespective of the religion, of their gender, of the social class, of their race, they were now all equal in the eyes of the nation. So now all the people living in the United States of America, irrespective of their religion, of their race, of their gender, or the social class they belonged to, were now equal before this one nation. All people had similar rights. They had equal rights to life, liberty and property, and no individual was supposed to be discriminated on any grounds. Now this image here is very symbolic. Here you can see these three people are of different races because their skin color is different. But they are all together, and together they say that we have rights. That is to say, no person would now be discriminated for their skin color or the race they belonged to. And this made the United States of America a democracy in the truest sense of the term. Now we learned that after the American Civil War, it were the northern states or the federal forces that mounted a momentous victory over the southern states or the Confederate States. The southern states no longer existed as the Confederate States because they were brought together or they were reintegrated in the Union. They were once again a part of the United States of America. Now since the northern states were victorious, these states now got to influence the country's politics. That is to say, these states now had upper hand in the country's politics. This was good for the nation because the northern states harbored liberal ideas. They weren't as conservative as the southern states, and we have already seen this while discussing the American Civil War. The southern states were in favor of slavery. they did not want this institution to come to an end, while the northern states were inspired by the ideals of democracy and liberty. And now, when the northern states started playing an active role in the politics of the country was also developing. Now, the importance of the northern states in the country's politics also had a major impact on the economic front. Let us find out how the importance of the northern states impacted the country economically. Ever since British colonial rule was there in North America, the northern states were developing differently from the southern states. At that time, these were the northern colonies that Britain had in North America, and it was during this time that trade was performed in these northern colonies. And after America gained its independence from British colonial rule and the Industrial Revolution reached America, the northern states underwent manifold transformation. It is because these states now developed into important industrial centers. Factories were being developed in these states and industries were also being set up in these states, which meant that this was also lucrative for the economy of the northern states. And after the American Civil War came to an end and the northern states kept enjoying an active role in the country's politics, rapid expansion of industries happened in the northern states. So together with this rapid industrialization of the northern states and the construction of railways, these northern states now developed very much. In this map, the green lines show you the railway tracks that were present in 1870 and the red lines show you the railway tracks that were constructed between 1870 and 1890. That is to say, the American economy was now more powerful in the industrialized USA. Along with that, this construction of railways also connected all the different states in the country. In this way, the various states in the United States of America were also connected and these states saw rapid expansion of industries, and this meant that USA was also gaining in power. It was also gaining popularity. The rapid industrialization of USA that started after the American Civil War did not come to an end anytime soon. This is because by the end of the 19th century, US now emerged as one of the most powerful nations in the entire world. The United States of America that you and I know today is a leading power. It's a leading power in the world economy. It's a leading power in global politics, and all this started from a period after the end of the American Civil War, when industries were growing in size, when industries were growing in number in the United States of America. So all these together contributed to making the United States that we know it today. It's a very powerful nation, and simultaneously with that, it also set a benchmark for federal governance and equality. We have also learned that the American War of Independence was the first of its kind because it was the first major political expression of the spirit of nationalism. And in this way, the American War of Independence had inspired subsequent nationalistic movements and revolutions throughout the world. And after it gained independence, after the American Civil War happened, after it started growing as a powerful nation, it now also set a benchmark for federal governance, because the world now got to know how a powerful federal system of government can function. And the United States of America also lived up to its promise of equality and democracy. Now, people who were living in the United States of America were equal. That is, all the people were on an equal plane. They were no longer discriminated on the grounds of religion, race, class, gender. So, it had now achieved the true democracy. It had now achieved equality in the truest sense, and this also inspired many nations throughout the world. So, the American Civil War has been a very important phase in the history of the United States of America, because it was during this period that the deadliest of battles were fought. So many people lost their lives. But it is only on account of this American Civil War that the horrible practice, the horrible dehumanizing institution of slavery came to an end. And it is for this reason that the American Civil War still continues to be a very important epoch in the history of not just America, but the history of the world. In this series of lessons on the American Civil War, we tried to trace the various causes that led to the outbreak of the American Civil War. We also understood what happened during the war, who was fighting the war against whom, and why they were embroiled in war. We learned about the various events and the various shapes that this war took and how this war came to an end. And in this lesson, we learned how the American Civil War was important in global politics and how it gave America the shape it has today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. You can also register for free at DeltaStep.com or download the DeltaStep app to learn one-to-one with our amazing teachers, or to get access to all our 5,000 plus amazing videos as per your school syllabus. Master each topic with our adaptive practice technology. Get million plus questions with step-by-step solutions and unlimited mock tests. Get all your doubts resolved instantly. Learn via games and win amazing prizes like PlayStations and iPads. So at DeltaStep, learning is not just fun and easy, it's rewarding too. So register for free now.